Welcome, everyone. My name is Amy Brown. I'm the Director of Events and Education for Trade Press Media Group and FacilitiesNet. Thank you for joining us for today's webcast, Protecting Facilities from Threats. Our presenters today are Jody Russell and Aaron Holcomb. Jody is the Global Sales Engineer Program Manager for Eagle Eye Networks. He has over 16 years of security integration experience as a system installer, manager, service provider, and designer. His experience as an integrator provides a special lens through which to see the challenges inherent in any install and how to provide the best possible solutions. Aaron is the Group Product Manager, Gate Operation Solution for LiftMaster. He has over 15 years of results-proven new product development and product management experience in the durable goods, motorcycle, outdoor power equipment, and lithium battery industries, leveraging his technical background to bring successful products that exceed customer expectation and drive new market opportunities. Today's learning objectives for our webcast include learn how modern facility managers are leveraging their existing video surveillance systems to minimize efficient safety and control of their property, learn how you can improve your current safety measures, and review ways your physical security measures can be upgraded with technology. Before we get started with the content, I'd like to go over a few details about today's event. The first half of today's event will be content provided by both of our panelists, and then we'll do an extended Q&A where you can ask your questions to our subject matter experts. You can ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type in your questions. At the conclusion of today's webcast, you'll receive a PDF copy of the slides that were used today. You'll also receive a brief online assessment, which upon a successful completion, you'll receive your CEU certificate. Today's webcast is also being archived at facilitiesnet.com/webcast. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Jody.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Amy, and thank you everyone for your attendance today. Thank you, FacilitiesNet, for this opportunity. So my name is Jody Russell. I'm with Eagle Eye Networks. We are #1 in true cloud video surveillance worldwide. We provide a cloud-based video surveillance platform, which leverages artificial intelligence to improve your business efficiency and do more than just protect your physical property and assets. One of the main things that we like to talk about as a benefit of using Eagle Eye Networks is that we're going to double the benefits of your traditional video surveillance system. And we're going to do that with two main ways, which I'll be talking about today. That is business efficiency, using your video surveillance cameras and your video surveillance system through the use of artificial intelligence to improve your overall business efficiency. And then we're going to talk about systems interoperability, having a complete security ecosystem, which leverages multiple types of technology, multiple services, in order to provide you a complete platform to utilize more than just video, but access control, building automation, all those other services that you're probably utilizing now from multiple vendors or platforms. We want to unify that, put it all behind one secure ecosystem. First, let's talk about kind of what we have in our traditional video surveillance system. And that is ultimately, we want to give our tenants the peace of mind. So we want to make sure that people feel safe, they feel like their property is secure, and they feel like they don't have to worry about security. It's more of an afterthought. We're going to do that through our cloud surveillance platform by helping you just have a better reputation overall. So whether it's a multi-tenant facility or a professional facility, having a great video surveillance system, having that security system in place, just gives you the kind of reputation that means that you take those things very seriously. And in today's world, that's extremely important. Protecting your assets means lower overhead over time. And so we can utilize access control to prevent unauthorized guests. We can monitor areas where there may be the habit for vandalism or loitering. And we're tying all these systems together to put them all behind that one central user interface. So what to consider when you're choosing a system? We have these 8 basic considerations that have existed for a long time, and then I'm going to talk about just a couple of extra things. Obviously, your cameras are only as good as the view which they have, so you definitely want to think about where you're putting your cameras. What is the view that the cameras have in front of them? Is there anything that's going to be blocking that view? Is the view going to be affected by lighting changes throughout the day? or is there the possibility of some object or some part of your business that could be placed and blocking the view of that camera? So camera placement, extremely important. How easy is the system to use? If the system is very powerful and offers a lot of features and can get very complex, that probably means that it's less easy to use. And obviously, as we move closer and closer towards a mobile first world, the efficiency of access and the ease of use becomes more and more important with your video surveillance system. Does your current system have mobile alerts, and are they considering cybersecurity? One of the challenges that people have faced for a long time with a traditional on-premise system is that it's not as secure as what can be done when you move that platform to the cloud. We put cybersecurity at the front of our efforts, and we have a strong background of providing cybersecurity to ensure that the video data and the access to the video data is always secured, but also that your facility is not looking at a threat that's being brought in from our actual platform itself. So it's not just managing the security of the data, but managing access to the system as a whole. And then we provide mobile alerts through our cloud infrastructure to make sure that you have the access to an alert in real time for real-time situational awareness and operational efficiency. Does your current system have third-party integrations? Is it interoperable? Because we are a cloud-based platform, it's very important to start thinking about all of those other systems that you have and how are you tying those systems together so that they can work as efficiently as possible to provide you an overall view or ecosystem of your complete facility. What is the longevity of your system? Is your system scalable? Is it future-proof? That ties directly into the cost, the total cost of ownership of your system over a 5-year period, much like what we would look at with a purchase of a vehicle. How much is this vehicle going to cost me out of the door or off the lot? And then how much is this security system going to cost me over a 5 to 10-year period? And we could provide total cost analysis that show you the benefits of moving to a SaaS model where you're receiving a lot more of the services based off of an operational expense versus a capital expense. And then lastly, flexible retention. Do you have the ability to only pay for what you want, when you need it? And with the government stepping in and changing maybe some of the requirements for video retention or requirements for video resolution, do you have flexible options there that allow you to scale accordingly or to pull back if you don't want to pay those extra costs? A couple of other things to consider is what are your goals with your system? And what do you absolutely have to have? How will you measure the return of investment on your system, the ROI? So is it something like you're going to receive better insurance rates because of your system? Or are you going to realize greater business efficiency because of your system? Do you actually have less theft? Are you actually utilizing your system to protect people and assets? And then, what do you need today versus what you may need tomorrow? What are your future needs? Or if you're not future-proofing your system now, then the cost of your system will only grow exponentially over time. So mobile access is a very big part of today's world, whether it's your banking app, your video surveillance app, even Netflix. You have to be able to access these systems on the go. And a true cloud-based video surveillance system is going to give you access to your property on the go from a mobile device. This allows you to streamline your operations. So now you can have access to multiple systems, all from one central user login, which is much more efficient for user management, much more efficient for user security. Fully cloud-based system means there's no on-site computers required, so you don't have to worry about the cost or the management of those systems. You don't have to worry about updates and security patches on those systems. You're simply pulling out your cellular device and you're accessing your video or your access control or whatever system it may be attached to that platform. You're accessing it from that mobile device, which is inherently more intuitive and more user-friendly. And then ultimately, we're looking at just efficient data collection. We want to be able to utilize that data for business insights, not just things like, is there a weakness in my infrastructure, or is there a possible point of access that we're not seeing from our camera views, but are we moving people through our buildings efficiently? Are there things within the process of gaining access to our building and then moving from one section of the building to the other that are slowing the whole process down? We can identify those with artificial intelligence using your video surveillance system. That's where advanced analytics and business intelligence comes into play. One of the most exciting things that we're doing and we're seeing in the industry overall is the use of artificial intelligence and advanced analytics to improve business optimization. So it's no longer just about taking a video camera and putting it in a room so that you can record all of the activity occurring in that room. But now we really want to use that video to teach your business what the world looks like, to teach your facility what the actual physical space looks like. And then we're going to utilize artificial intelligence to provide the business insights, which you will then turn around and use to make better business decisions, better decisions about how you manage or operate your facility. Things like controlling access and traffic flow. You can pinpoint where do you have funnel points that could cause slowdowns in people being able to enter or exit the parking lot. You can utilize something like a LPR camera with artificial intelligence to identify the make, the model, the color of the vehicle, and then tie that into license plate recognition, which allows you to create not only better situational awareness, but you could have events-based or rules-based monitoring. So you can control exactly who is coming and going from your facility, or when there is somebody in your facility that maybe shouldn't be there or is an unknown person or unknown vehicle. We're seeing a really cool feature which shows, using artificial intelligence, it shows us exactly which parking spots are being utilized, and then we know how many spots we have available within our parking lot. So a lot of other actionable insights can be gained from this business optimization, artificial intelligence, and analytics. The swimming pool is a great example. So swimming pools have always been traditionally pretty difficult for a video surveillance system to really efficiently record activity. You're either wasting a lot of video, a lot of data on the recording of a pool that nobody's in, but the water's moving or the light's reflecting off of the water. You can't turn that camera off because you have it over that pool for a reason. Maybe it's insurance related. If there were an event, because you've been recording nonstop because of the motion activity occurring, it can be very hard to find that event and find the actual video clip because you just have so much video that you have to get through. It's just very inefficient. Whereas using something like artificial intelligence or analytics, we can now rule out the video or the motion activity from the water or the light reflecting off the water, and we can utilize artificial intelligence to identify an actual person, even to a person that's distressed. So if there's somebody in a pool and they're making movements that are obviously a sign of distress, that can trigger a remote alert. And because it's a cloud-based platform, that remote alert can go directly to your mobile device, and it allows you to react in close to real time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to comply with ever-changing regulations. The government is constantly, making up their mind and then changing their mind. And your pocketbook reflects that a lot of times. You have to comply and then recomply, where if you have a scalable, elastic system, the ease to comply and the time to get to compliance is much quicker. Interoperability is a big part of the future in our industry. We have to be able to take systems and put them together and make them work together, because the user no longer wants to jump between multiple logins and multiple platforms in order to gain the benefit of those systems. So utilizing our open REST-based API, we're able to meet all sorts of unique use cases, things like access control systems, alarm monitoring systems, license plate recognition cameras, and even custom portals. So maybe it's a multi-tenant residential facility, and you need to be able to utilize your own custom residential user portal where they can have access to their doors, have access to a camera at the front of the building, be able to allow visitors in through a man gate using the artificial assisted license plate recognition system. Things like this are all possible because of an interoperable system, and you cannot do that without an open ecosystem approach, which we do through our REST-based API. Interoperability also means the power of choice. So we're not going to be locked in on certain types of cameras, and this is important for you to consider when you're thinking about how you're going to protect your facility. Do you have existing camera systems? Those existing systems may work just absolutely fine, but they're not cloud connected, or they don't have the interoperability of connecting to your access control system. And so we want to make sure that we give you the power of choice by making sure that you're not locked into any one specific brand or model. So we have an agnostic approach to how we support our cameras. And that gives us the ability to support well over 5,000 cameras on the market today and continue to support additional emerging technology as it becomes available. So you're no longer looking at the need to go ahead and spend a lot of money in order to get the right camera that works with the system. Get a system that works with your cameras, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of frustration down the road. And then ultimately, you may not necessarily be ready to move to a full IP-based system. You may have a legacy analog system, or you've made an investment in nice HD over coax cameras. We see a lot of times, especially with historical buildings, you cannot remove some of the existing cabling infrastructure. You can't add additional cabling infrastructure. And so being able to take those analog and HD over coax systems and connect them to a hybrid device means that we give you a lot more compatibility and a lot more flexibility. So our goal ultimately is to deliver a unified cloud-based video surveillance system. And this includes access control, but it can also include your burglar alarm, your building automation systems, your visitor management system, all of that. We want to put it behind one unified platform so that it's easier to access, it's easier to manage, it's much more efficient, it's more user-friendly, and you're only logging into one single spot, and then you have access to your video. You can grant access to a guest or visitor. You can confirm that it's the right person, and then you have access to all of that video that's there. And so currently we work with Salto, Brevo, DMP, Genea, and there's a list of other systems that we are integrated with. It again goes back to that interoperability and our open security ecosystem approach. So I do want to just say that we are Eagle Eye Networks, and I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take your questions following up with the Q&A. You can reach us at going to sales@een.com and send us an email, and we'll be glad to talk more directly about your particular facility. We have a channel of very talented, trained resellers that will help us make sure that we're getting the right solution in place for you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And Amy, I'm going to turn it back over to you now.
Yes, thank you, Jody. And just a reminder, we'll be having an extended Q&A asking Jody and Aaron detailed questions in the second half of this presentation. But now I'd like to turn it over to Aaron for some information. Aaron? There we go.
All right, great. Sorry about that again. My name is Aaron Holcomb. I'm a group product manager at LiftMaster. I am responsible for gate operators and barrier arm operators, but as a product line that is fully integrated into all of other LiftMaster solutions, we always make sure that we are capable or understanding of what the other offerings within LiftMaster and all the other access solutions. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a journey in terms of talking through what we learned in the past year and a half on the gate operator side and facility protection. And then I'll go through and just kind of talk through how that's integrated into the whole facility security and other issues related to that. So who is LiftMaster? We've been around for quite a while. We're mostly obviously known for garage door openers in a residential application through LiftMaster in Chamberlain. But we also have a significant amount of involvement in different types of gated communities as we see more and more multi-home gated communities and in multi-family communities where access control is very important. And then as we're starting to build more in terms of intelligence within the automobile sector, that was also talked about earlier, we are involved in that. And then lastly, a little bit more in the commercial business for us, our wheelhouse is in terms of the whole facility access solution. So not only the perimeter side, but once you get into the perimeter, all the other solutions that we offer within LiftMaster. So I'll go ahead and kind of talk through the journey that we had on the gate operator side and things to consider. So we're going to launch a new industrial line of gate operators. And what my intention today is not to obviously talk through that in terms of this particular operator line, but mostly what we learned during this time, especially some slight changes through the pandemic that we're all involved in, and what happened there. But one thing I do want to clear up in terms of our areas, when we talk about the industrial quote unquote line of gate operators, and you'll hear that probably amongst other company offerings, and that doesn't mean an operator that is intended to go to infrastructure, oil refineries, or things like that. What industrial really means is an operator that's is going to be protected. As sometimes call it, it's a very heavy duty black box. It's going to have a steel cabinet. And one thing that we did learn over some time is how important it is to have the robustness within the cabinet itself. A lot of these gate operators within the industry, they might have plastic housings and so forth in different applications. But when you get into that heavier duty situation, or maybe some weather that's not the nicest weather, we had one particular situation where a snowplow essentially just jammed itself into the operator and hit it head on. Luckily with that steel, didn't create much damage, and the operator still functioned. The other issue that we start to see was a little bit more of an opportunity for different types of chemicals in the air, or different types of situations where there's something going on within the environment that's going to damage any type of other material other than some type of steel or some type of metal enclosure. And that's where it's become much more important to make sure you have a robust steel enclosure that's not going to be susceptible to some type of environmental damage. The other thing that we started to learn is, and one of my colleagues coined it quite well, is a facility manager is just looking for something that works. They have too much other things to worry about within the building, within other things going on from a security standpoint, to worry about a gate operator that they might have to check out, or possibly even have a person stationed out there. So quote unquote, it just works, came up over and over again. And then we digged into that a little bit more. And what we started to understand is some of the base, and it's not really technology, but in terms of just having a battery backup system. When we talk to a lot of folks at these new facilities, data centers, that very complex and capable backup power capability, we just assume, hey, they could run backup power out to the site. And what became more understandable is how they didn't want to have to worry about that. They wanted essentially that black box, it just works. They didn't have to worry about running power out there. So that's where a self-contained unit having battery backup capability, but then it goes deeper. Some facility managers may want it to open up when the power goes out so they don't have an issue. Others want it to just simply operate as normal, or they want it to close and not be able to be open. So those are all things that be considered whenever looking at these types of products, is what are the different opportunities or different options you have for battery backup. And then we started digging a little bit more and trying to understand, okay, a lot of facilities before, they might open their gate for a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, or those heavier transit times when loads are coming in. Now we're starting to understand the speed of the gate, trying to open and close it as much as possible, because a gate that's closed is certainly going to provide more security than when it's open. And that's when we started to really understand that whenever we use this term continuous duty, it's common in the motor industry and other industries. What does that really mean? And we started asking, okay, well, continuous duties, I mean, it's going to have to open and close like 80% of the time, or what's that duty cycle look like? And it become abundantly clear, it just needs to open all the time, night, day, it doesn't matter. It just needs to make sure it's opening and closing. And that's when we really started to boil down again to that issue where this unit needs to, whatever type of gate that you might have, you need to have some type of operator that's going to be able to just leave it alone, let it run. Don't worry about maintenance. Don't worry about any interruption to your power, to your shore power that you have to go check it out. It's just going to run. It's going to move these gates and not have an issue. For example, what we're also starting to see, and this is obviously a little bit more of an illustration type photo, but we are starting to see these gates starting to grow in size as well. I think from the pandemic, and again, this is anecdotal, what we see in a lot of the discussions with customers and dealers and facility managers is now and not really most recent, but money was cheap. There was an opportunity to provide a pretty good amount of investment. And then it became into, okay, well, I need to make sure I have a gate that someone just can't simply climb over, or someone just can't like run a vehicle through. So it became, these gates and fence lines were becoming much more, I guess, robust, and that's weight. And then that turns into, okay, well, now you have a heavy gate, you have your central access point. That's where those operators need to make sure not only can they run all the time, not have an issue, but they have the strength and capability to run that heavier gate that's 2,000 or 3,000 pounds, without interruption and heavy winds and inclement weather and things like that. So those things started to percolate up to the top. And it's something to think about in terms of when you choose and how you're going to protect your perimeter, is what kind of gate operator are you going to have to make sure it can actually open up that gates consistently. The other thing I do want to briefly talk about is in terms of safety itself. I would certainly invite anyone to go to LiftMaster.com. There's some information about safety on the gate itself, because now with these gates obviously being heavier, they got a lot of momentum. They're going to hit someone, and with that momentum, it's like a 5,000 pound truck versus a 2,000 or 3,000 pound small hatchback. The damage is going to be higher, and there's a significant amount of safety requirements and safety accessories that all gate suppliers are going to be able to provide to make sure that when something like that does happen, or I'm sorry, when someone is in the way, that they're not going to be hurt. And that's something to really consider about these situations, is it's not necessarily just making sure that the gate is opening and closing all the time, but it's doing it safely. The other thing is in terms of access. What kind of access are you going to have? For LiftMaster, we have our own proprietary rolling code system, Security Plus 2.0, in terms of transmitters. But one thing to consider is, what kind of transmitters are you going to use? Are you going to use something that someone can just get from Amazon and cheat it and get in? Are you going to use keypads? Are you going to use badges? And then how do you control to make sure those don't get lost or give them to a friend or anything or someone else? So those are things to consider, and there's certainly ways to overcome that, because you can control those keypad or key codes, you can control those transmitters. Those are options there, but it's something that you got to consider. The other one is in terms of the gate operator and how it actually operates. There's things called, for example, a feature anti-tailgate, in terms of when the gate is opening, how quickly it will immediately close when someone passes through it, and how does that gate actually function when someone does enter that zone? Does it simply stop? Does it full reverse? Does it sound an alarm? Those are things you got to think about because of how you want to control it. But then you can even go a little bit deeper. Barrier arms are a great example. There's hold areas. You might have a system where you want to have 2 barrier arms set up, or another option is a barrier arm and a gate operator, where you might want to get someone into essentially a pen or a holding area. Once they're in that holding area, then they're allowed to enter the facility. So there's a significant amount of options, and because of those options, a significant amount of communication that has to happen between the different operators. And I think that's where we go through into this next slide. This is just kind of an idea of like all the different systems that you might have to integrate, from locks on pedestrian entry points, from cameras in terms of identifying and watching and seeing who's coming in. And then of course, we've already talked about the perimeter side. And then we get into vehicle access, guest access passes, videos on those guest access points so you can see who it is. So it's not simply just someone calling through into someone and asking to come in. You can see that person. And then lastly, in terms of those commercial doors, pretty much every facility, no matter what it is going to have some type of commercial door, and it's going to have a commercial door operator. And how do you control that operator to make sure there's access, controlled access? And that's where we get into the next slide. And this is where we got to look at this in terms of a whole ecosystem. I've talked kind of heavily about the gate operator side, obviously, because of the learnings we've had over the past 18 months or so, as we've been developing new products and so forth in that space, and what's important to a facility manager. But the one thing that we start seeing more and more and more, and I somewhat alluded to it in terms of transmitters and badges and so forth, but what we're starting to see more and more is you might have a system that's set up for your perimeter, whatever it may be. And then you might have a system that's going to be handling badge access or a person. And then you might have not a facility manager, but maybe a dock manager or yard management tools in terms of controlling who's coming in and out of the docks. So now all these systems are separated and they're not integrated and they're speaking separately. So if someone is able to get through that first perimeter, and if someone's not controlling your dock, where there's a door that's just simply always open because if someone needs to pull up, they can pull up. Now you just have an open access point to your building that's uncontrolled. And there is no control point between when someone enters that gate and then when they actually are able to get to a dock. So because of that being uncontrolled, we see a lot of, I guess, bleeding or a lot of effects there where there's just not an integration of all these different access points into one. And that's where it's really important to whatever system you look to invest in. You don't necessarily think of just the perimeter as a separate system, or just the dock as a separate system, or just the front door, or any type of pedestrian access. Think of this all together because they need to speak to each other. You need to control who has access, when they have access, no matter what position they come in. And it should, and then also consider the fact that a lot of these systems, whatever they may be, a badge or a transmitter, they get lost, they get misplaced. Are those badges and transmitters and all that being tracked? Do you know who has one? Can you stop access immediately if something is lost to all points within the facility? So those are all things to consider when looking at that. I just want to go just quickly in the last slide again, my contact information, liftmaster.com. I'll turn it back over to Amy, and just want to thank everyone for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Aaron. Like I mentioned, the second half of this presentation, we are looking for some of the questions from the audience that you have. But I'll start us off, and this question is probably for Jody at the to start. Jody, you mentioned a few ways, but typically when we think about video surveillance, we think about that for going back and reviewing after a issue has happened. What are some ways that we can use some of the video surveillance technology to prevent threats or issues from happening?
Yeah, great question. So we're investing a lot into more of a proactive approach to video surveillance. So it's utilizing certain types of behavior patterns, artificial intelligence that can recognize aggressive behaviors and flag that for real-time situational awareness. So if you have a security operations center, or even just a facilities manager that has an iPad, and a notification goes over to the iPad, and then the facility manager gets to make the call as to whether or not this is a real threat. Any kind of analytic that we can utilize for maintaining proper traffic flow. So people that are entering a building, if somebody is diverging from where they're supposed to be, that can trigger a real-time alert. And then we can catch that individual before they maybe get to some sort of sensitive area or sensitive personnel. Those are just two examples that come directly to mind. Obviously, we'd love to spend more time talking about some of the more advanced artificial intelligence features that we have available. Just maybe a conversation to reach out to me directly, and more than happy to have that conversation.
Aaron, we have a question from an audience member. He said you didn't mention biometric access options. Do you have any of those options available?
Currently within LiftMaster's portfolio, we do not have anything related to a biometric type of access. We're obviously changing our product line, monthly, coming out with new products. I wouldn't be able to divulge what we have in our pipeline. But we don't have anything of biometric right now.
Perfect. This question is probably for both Aaron and Jody, so I'll let Aaron you start. But how do you balance the need for gates and fences and video surveillance and cameras? How do you balance, the technology and the need for that with and making sure tenants and occupants feel safe, versus not making it too cumbersome, making it look too not industrial, but we don't want people to feel like Big Brother's watching or that they're locked in. So how do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think that's where there can be, I guess, some a little bit different ways of using gates and obviously hiding cameras and so forth. But there's opportunities of mixed use. For example, using barrier arms are a little bit less intrusive. So you might have a gate that you use during certain evenings or evening times and so forth, and then utilize a barrier arm for more higher traffic. But yeah, there's a lot of I guess some really high quality integrators out there that do have a really good method of having cameras that are not easily seen and located. But then on the gate side, it's just a matter of, balancing easy access for homeowners and so forth. But then also just having a stop or a position where you can identify that person without seeming like you're spending a lot of time identifying them.
I would add to what Aaron said, and this is actually, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a social, a mindset dynamic that has occurred over many years of, at least for the video surveillance world. Many years, there was literally a big brother watching the video, and anytime somebody saw a video camera at a facility, it was assumed that there's a security guard looking at a screen somewhere in that building, and they see me on that camera. And therefore my behavior, my actions, my activities are all being monitored by a human being who's probably making judgment calls about me. And that creates this sort of big brother mentality that somebody's watching. But what we're really moving towards now in the industry is that we're taking that human element out of it, and we're putting an artificial intelligence in there that is not necessarily watching you as a person and as an individual. It's observing the scene, it's observing the behaviors, and it's really only flagging anomalies. And so people, when they really begin to kind of change their mindset about who it is behind that camera, what it is behind that camera that's seeing me right now, and they understand that it's a computer, it's an artificial intelligence, it's not making a judgment call on me. And honestly, the video of me walking into this building is going to be gone, because it's really only the anomalies that we're catching and that we're flagging for somebody to look at. So it's about, as Aaron said, it's having a great integrator that knows how to install your systems and the devices in a way that makes them unobtrusive and as visibly appealing as possible. And then there's a little bit of a mind shift that has to occur. And I think that when we put the power in the hand of the user, when they can see the cameras on their mobile device, they eventually feel better and better about the fact that the cameras are there. And they realize that this is not a tool for spying, this is a tool for protection. And then ultimately that just provides a better mindset.
Perfect. Aaron, what would you consider one of the easiest opportunities for improved security for a facility?
I think it's a good question. It obviously depends on the facility itself, what kind of access points it has. I think that's one way of looking at it. I think the one thing that I would say the easiest way to improve is just to make sure that your systems are able to connect, and that connection can be anything. It can be a Wi-Fi signal. It could be connecting to whatever type of behind the scenes software system you might have in the cloud. But I think the easiest way to improve security is doing an evaluation of how the different operators or fence lines and what you have the ability of tracking and understanding who's coming in and out through the connection of that particular operator. I think that's probably the easiest evaluation to begin with. Sometimes it can be difficult to make that change, but that's the first step, is to really understand what's going on within your perimeter.
Amy, I'd like to add to that, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think Aaron said it really well. And also I really liked that, during his presentation, he really talked a lot about integration and connected systems. I obviously talk a lot about interoperability and connected systems. And sort of to back up what Aaron just said, that really one of the easiest things that you can do right now today is go look at your current system and see, is it integrated? Is it interoperable with other systems? Do you have connectivity to the internet? This is going to change what your abilities to scale are in the future. If you don't have a system that's interoperable, that is integrated, that has internet connectivity, then you have a system that is going to be end of life very soon. And the technology, the emerging technology that's coming, you will not be able to take advantage of. And so all of the great benefits of the cloud and interconnectivity and these services that we're talking about, they all rely upon being able to put together a complete security ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that we're seeing too is the technology side in terms of just basic bandwidth. As there's more opportunities of transmitting data, you're going to see a significant shift in technology and how to get data and just be able to analyze that data no matter what it is. So yeah, it's changing very quickly.
And I would imagine that there's people out there that are trying to take advantage of some of those facilities that might not have an integrated security system. They're getting,
Absolutely.
they're getting smarter as well, and they understand facilities that might have some lax security operations. Would you agree with that? Or
there's certainly an element of just the crime of opportunity when somebody realizes a system or a facility is not connected. There's automatically there's more time and opportunity for them to commit a crime or for them to whatever nefarious actions they want to do. Whereas if the system is connected, even if it's not a very good system, if it's connected and it provides real-time situational awareness, then that opportunity time to commit a crime is much, much lower.
Yeah.
Aaron, in your presentation, you talked about, it just needs to work. And I think all of the facility managers on the call can attest to that. Can we talk a little bit about preventative maintenance and what needs to go in to make sure that it works?
Yeah, no problem. We're actually working through at LiftMaster, I can say, and certainly other companies might be doing things differently. At LiftMaster, we are beginning to make more of a shift to really understand how we need to make sure that these units work with limited service requirements and based on possibly time or cycles. There's some basics and I always say if for example, a gate operator is going to have something external that moves, it could be a variety of things, usually a chain. A lot of companies will have a lawn and garden service or some type of service like that. Just have them come out and just simply wipe off the chain, provide a lubricant. But what we really want to try to do is see if we can limit those other type of internal maintenance requirements to 6 months or an annual basis. Obviously, it's going to depend on cycles or how often the product's used, because there is oil. These units do have a gearbox. There's a lot of more electrical items, so there's very, very limited service requirements. But those gearbox units, the oil, just like if your vehicle and sometimes they talk about differential or transmission oil and so forth in your vehicle, same type of thing. More you use it, it's going to need to be changed. So I would certainly invite everyone to look. If you're looking at an operator, look at that manual and they'll have what those requirements are. But there's ways to utilize other services to also help with some of that maintenance. But yeah, the goal for us is to certainly limit all those contacts or all those maintenance needs as much as possible.
Perfect. Jody, you mentioned in your presentation about the cloud. We've got a question on some of the federal government's standards for putting data in the cloud. They're wondering if you've received the FedRAMP security approval. And can you just talk a little bit about, putting data in the cloud and some of the things our audience might need to know about that?
Yeah, that's a long conversation. There's a lot of different compliance that has to be considered, different certifications and licenses. We are currently working on our FedRAMP certification. It is not a very easy process. So we're about halfway through it right now. So I would imagine, hopefully 2023, we get that certification. We do have our ISO 20007 or 27001. We have SOC 2 Type 2. So we've got the building blocks to get to a point where we can start taking advantage of some of those opportunities that are there from a federal perspective. But again, and I hate to keep deferring questions, but that's such a very, very in-depth topic that happy to talk through it, happy to show what we have and what our roadmap is for federal certification. Just probably better to do that offline on a one-on-one conversation.
Sure. But can you talk a little bit about who has access to the video when it's in the cloud?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So really the only one that has access to the video when it's in the cloud is whoever the end user allows. There's a kind of an idea that if you put your video or your security or any of your data in the cloud, then everybody that's there in the cloud with you can potentially access it. That's just it's just inherently not true. We as the service provider, we can access the video with your permission, and there are several different systems in place to ensure that we cannot access it unauthorized. And so the user, while it makes the user access much easier, it also gives them a lot more control. Say, for example, who has access to your old DVR that's been tucked away in a closet for the past 10 years? Probably a user password or whatever's been shared on that, or somebody left the company and is still in that system. Whereas when you're looking at it from a cloud-based approach, you have instantaneous access to manage and control exactly who touches your video, who touches your data.
Perfect. Aaron, can you talk a little bit? This person's asking, how do you control lost transmitters or duplicate keys? I'm sure that's a major issue for many of our facility managers. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen work?
Yeah, I can say LiftMaster has their solution built in the software that we offer. For example, on this slide, powered by MyQ, there's ways of tracking every transmitter or badge to a specific person. So we do offer that solution, but at the end of the day, it does take someone either through an internal process that if someone leaves a company, what do they need to go through? I think we probably through the great what do they call it, the great resignation that we've had in the past year, we've maybe a few of us or know someone that's left a company, and usually that last thing you do is you turn in your badge, right? And there's needs to be those processes in place to make sure that happens. And then if that doesn't happen, someone will need to go into the whatever software package there is. And in our case, they would able to go into the MyQ environment and simply turn that transmitter off or badge off or something along those lines if they need to. So there's ways to controlling that. I mean, right now, obviously, transmitters are a little bit of I wouldn't say an older technology. They've just been around for a long time. So you have to be cognizant of what kind of system you have. But then you get into these others more modern systems, and they're certainly tracked through different serial numbers and so forth. But it does take some due diligence on the whoever is managing that access to make sure that they're going into the whatever environment that may be to turn on and off access transmitters and badges and so forth.
Perfect, thank you. This question is probably for Jody. Jody, we've had a few questions about connectivity. One person just asked, do the cameras stop working if there's network issues? Another person asked what they've had challenges maintaining a non-interoperable cloud connectivity. Can you just talk about some connectivity and what your organization kind of handles those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron said it very well. Facility managers, they just want the thing to work, right? It's just out of sight, out of mind. Let us know it works, and we recognize that. And we're certainly true cloud, and we really spend a lot of time and energy and focus talking about true cloud. But we understand that sometimes connectivity can be an issue, or at least not always reliable. And so our systems are designed in a way that you have at least a 48-hour of buffer capacity on the device. So we have an appliance that we put between the camera and the cloud. That device, it's not a DVR or an NVR or anything like that. It's an intelligent device that's designed to manage the transmission and encrypt the data. And alongside of that, it has a buffer capacity built into it so that if you should lose internet connectivity, your video system's still working. And then we have additional ways that we can make sure that you have at least local access to the video that doesn't require internet access. So you can still have your live views. You can still make sure that your alerts are being sent at least locally. And then when the internet is reconnected, or if you have a momentary blip, all that data is built to intelligently synchronize back to the cloud behind the scenes. So it's not like you have to worry about doing a big massive push because you had your internet offline for a day and now you got to go and push all that data up to the cloud. It's just going to automatically synchronize. And then through our bandwidth management system that we have in place, our intelligent bandwidth manager, that allows the system to really utilize the network, the existing network, as efficiently as possible to make sure that the video is synchronizing to the cloud, but we're not shutting down business operations at the same time while we're doing that. And then some of the things that the downfalls to having a system that's not connected, obviously user management, system management, all of those things become much more difficult. One of the main 5 tenets of true cloud, according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is that you must have broad network access if you're going to call yourself a cloud platform. And the reason for that is if you don't have broad network access, then you're limited to how you manage, control, access, view your video. All of that has to happen on site. And so then somebody has to be there to do security updates. Somebody has to be there to do hardware updates, software updates. Something as simple as removing a terminated employee requires somebody to go onto site, takes time away from their normal business duties to get onto site, to go find the device, to log into the device, and to remove that individual. Whereas a connected system, you're doing that in real time from your laptop. The moment that individual is walking out of the building, like Aaron said, you still have to have somebody there's a process that has to exist for somebody to take that person's badge or whatever that may be. Same thing. We're just going to make it more efficient with a connected system.
Aaron, anything to add on network connectivity?
No, I think Jody covered it really well.
Perfect. This question is probably for both of you. We know new threats are popping up almost on a daily basis. How often would you recommend a facility manager kind of review their security system, kind of do a security audit of their current systems in place?
I'll go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we recommend it quarterly. Now that's a lot different, I'm sure, than from a physical standpoint with thing like a gate opener or an access door. You probably have to touch those a little more often because of the physical aspect of things. But for us, if you have a good quarterly security review, for one thing, the system is becoming more and more self-sufficient and doesn't need so much touching. And so you can rely that if it's up and running, and especially if it's connected and cloud-based system, if something's wrong, you're going to get an alert. We're going to be proactive with letting you know that something needs to be addressed, that there's a system failure at some point. And most of the time, you're going to know it, or it's already going to be fixed before you even know there's a problem, because you do have the ability to remotely access and maintain and update things. But a good quarterly review of your video surveillance system, it catches things like cameras that may have been bumped or are blocked by maybe somebody takes a pallet and sets it down somewhere, and now it's blocking a camera view of a door. Dust, spiders, things like that, bugs that crawl around on the cameras. You have cameras that a traditional system could be on the wall and everything looks great. Somebody slips and falls, and then you realize the camera hasn't been working for 6 months, but because nobody was looking at it and nothing had happened, it wasn't a big concern. Well, if you're doing a good quarterly review, then the chances of that happening are down quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at them. The way Jody covered that, I think from our standpoint, I don't have a really strong recommendation. Every situation is different. A lot of that discussion should happen with your integrator or who is installing the equipment. They may recommend different cycles. It depends on a lot on access points you might have. But I think with a gate operator specifically, the good thing is it's pretty well understood how the system is working on a daily basis, just through general observation. Other access points you might have in terms of a commercial door operator, same thing. You're generally utilizing those pieces quite often, but certainly there needs to be an actual real walk around, a real check of every point. Is it communicating properly? Does it have any error codes within the system that you need to take a look at? But I think your best resource is going to be probably that integrator that provided the different systems and so forth to give you a really good indication of what they would recommend.
Wonderful. Well, we are getting close to the top of the hour. I'd love to give both of you an opportunity to give final thoughts to our audience as we kind of wrap up the event. Aaron, you want to go first? And any final thoughts to our audience?
Just real quick, just thank you everyone for your time. Sorry a little bit to start under mute there and took a little bit to unmute myself, but yeah, just thank you everyone for your time. If there are any questions, obviously don't hesitate to reach out to us in terms of my contact information or some of the general contact information. We are much more, I would say, resiliently quicker, maybe is a better term in terms of contacting you back through our sales team. But if you do have any questions for me specifically, don't hesitate to contact me and I can get you to the right folks. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. And Jody, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so thank you everyone for your time and your participation in this event. You can go and check us out at EEN.com, EagleEyeNetworks.com. You can email sales@EEN.com. Any of these numbers that are listed on this contact page right here, they can get a hold of me if you want to talk directly with me. I'm always happy to have those conversations. We have a whole team of sales engineers that are your technical subject matter experts when it comes to true cloud video surveillance. And then lastly, I just say, right now, if you're a facilities manager or an owner, take a look at your current system and ask yourself, do you have that broad network access? Do you have the ability to share in the benefit of the economy of scale, which occurs when you're part of the cloud, and the emerging technologies are only become more and more powerful and more expensive. And so getting into a cloud service platform means that you're sharing the burden of that cost, and you don't have to just take it all on your own. So that'd be it for us. But thank you everyone for your time, and thank you again, FacilitiesNet. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you again to Jody and Aaron, and thank you to Eagle Eye Networks and LiftMasters for helping put on this event today. We look forward to seeing you at future FacilitiesNet webcasts. Just a reminder, you will get an email with a copy of the presentation and a link to take a CEU assessment if you need continuing education units. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.